The following is not a paid advertisement for Small Town Brewery, Starbrew Studios, or Relogic Games. That said, we are totally open to a sponsorship. Seriously, please call us anytime. We will show your product so hard you won't even believe it. Hello, and welcome to the Great Northern Game Night. I'm your host, Tony.
Hello, this is Matt.
And we are here to talk about video games. So,
Yeah.
Been a little bit more than 2 weeks, I think. Mostly because of me and not having time. But, you know, my school semester is over now, so we should be getting back on track with these things.
Oh, that's all right, man. It happens. It happens. No worries.
I am having a little drink here on the podcast recording.
For people that are watching who may not know, which is probably most of you, we cannot see each other right now. We did the first episode and pretty much all of the last attempts at this podcast with a video call going between the two of us. But right now, we aren't doing that. So I can't see him, and Tony can't see me.
We were having some issues where it was just ruining our audio feed, so we had to cut that part, which shouldn't really be that big of a deal. Unless something crazy happens at Matt's house and I don't get to see it. But
it's happened before. So, knock on wood.
So yeah, we it's kind of a good time to do a podcast though. So some big stuff on the horizon.
Yeah.
E3 is about a month out. I believe we are planning to we're going to restream the E3 conferences. I don't know what Twitch channel we're going to do that on. We might make one for the podcast. We might just use one of our existing channels. But
we'll figure something out.
Yeah, so the E3, the conferences that are going to be streamed go from June 10th to June 13th. We might not be able to do the Monday or Tuesday conferences. That's the 12th or the 13th.
Yeah. Time permitting, we'll see.
Yeah, I have to work. I don't know about Matt. I can maybe...
I probably do, but we'll figure something out. We'll work around it.
I'll try to get those days off and we'll see. But
we'll DVR it.
Almost everything is announced at this point for E3. So E3 is going to open up with the pre-E3 event on Saturday, June 10th, which is the EA conference. And I think EA normally opens E3 with a pre-E3 conference. And then Sunday, June 11th, we got Microsoft's panel and Bethesda's panel. Monday, June 12th, the PC Gaming Show, hosted by PC Gamer. Sony
I kind of like the last one. I'm looking forward to that.
It was pretty good. A lot of people thought that some of the stuff was kind of cringy, and I mean, it's always gonna be. It's people that aren't really gamers making content for gamers, because a lot of people that are presenting this stuff generally are not really working on the game, aside from they're the PR person or they had the idea for the game or something. But
yeah, you get a lot of them where it's the CEO or something, someone who's a name that the public will recognize, but
I mean,
you're not getting any software engineers.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
When Todd Howard comes out and talks to you about a game, he doesn't really know what's going on under the hood with that game. He just knows how to say the words that make you excited for the video game he's talking about.
Now, I think you might be exaggerating a little bit, but I love the idea that he's actually just like a dumbass. I don't think he actually is, but I love the idea that he is.
You know what I mean.
That's really funny to me.
Yeah. Generally, the games Todd Howard's telling you about, he's probably not doing the coding for anymore. I don't really think that's
Well, they've got a huge team.
Yeah, I don't think that's Todd's wheelhouse
probably got something to do with it.
So Monday is the PC Gaming Show and the Sony conference. Ubisoft's, they have not announced a date yet for theirs.
Yeah, they probably have to find a new MC.
God.
Wouldn't surprise me.
So no information on that. And then Nintendo is not having a traditional E3 conference, but they are doing their stuff on June 13th, which is Tuesday. And they're doing...
I know they've done that for, is it a couple years in a row now where they haven't had a big press conference?
Yeah,
they just do their own little thing.
Yeah, they do their own thing. They've basically split from E3, but they still do their stuff at E3 time. So there's There's a treehouse, and then right after that there is a presentation on the Switch, I think.
They are doing like a booth. They have a presence in E3 this year. It's just not a big press conference. And they're doing actually an ARMS tournament and a Splatoon 2 tournament, which I'm really looking forward to because I am pumped for both of those games.
Yeah.
So I hope that goes well for them because I really want to see more of those, especially ARMS.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about that because they've confirmed some games that are going to be at E3 in some form. There's a lot of rumors, but there's several that have been confirmed. So ARMS is going to be at E3, and it is going to be playable at E3. So it's playable on the floor. Battlefield 1 is announcing some expansion at E3. I didn't play Battlefield 1, so I don't really.
Yeah, me neither.
I don't really know anything about that. There is a PC game confirmed called Battle Sloths 2025: The Great Pizza Wars.
Really?
Don't know anything about that game, but it sounds cool.
That sounds really promising. That's one to keep your eye on, I think.
I mean, it's obviously some kind of indie thing.
Yeah.
Call of Duty World War II will be there. FIFA 18, Madden 18, and NBA Live 18 will all be there and playable.
Exciting stuff.
There is a new Need for Speed game, which doesn't have a name, apparently. It's just New Need for Speed. But that will be playable, I guess. Splatoon 2 will be there and playable. Star Wars Battlefront 2 will be there and playable. State of Decay 2 will be there, and Super Mario Odyssey will be there and playable, actually.
That surprises me, and apparently that's going to be the focus of Nintendo's E3 presence this year. They've got the other games there that were mentioned, but they're really apparently going all in on Odyssey this year.
Yeah,
it's still a few months away. ARMS is out in I think a little over a month. It's less than 40 days at this point. Splatoon 2 also sometime soon, June or July. I know that's a summertime title as well.
That's July.
But Odyssey is Christmas time.
Yeah, Odyssey is holiday, July. Which is technically holiday is like a 3-month window, but that means at the earliest it comes out in October. So
yeah, gearing up for the holiday season. Could be any time around there or after, more likely.
Yeah.
And so it's cool that it'll be playable so soon, but
yeah, I'm wondering if it's just going to be tech demo kind of thing, one level that you can kind of run around and do really basic things.
Yeah. That's I think that's kind of a common thing for E3 demos, the playable ones. It's usually a short little 1 or 2 levels, that kind of thing. And with Odyssey, I think what they're doing is people were kind of freaking out about the city stage with the cars and skyscrapers and all that.
New Donk City.
It doesn't look that big. Yeah, it's just going to be a whole bunch of smaller stages like that. People saw that and thought oh, open world Mario game, especially after Breath of the Wild. But no, I think it's pretty obvious it's going to be some kind of here's one stage, another one in classic Mario fashion.
I can't imagine an open world Mario. I don't think they would go for that. They're not, Mario is the Nintendo baby. They're not taking any chances on Mario.
Well, Zelda kind of lends itself to that genre with the tools and, your horse and all that kind of stuff. But Mario, not so much.
Yep.
But that's that's what it does well.
Yeah, and like you said, there's a Splatoon 2 tournament and an ARMS tournament that are both going to be happening at E3, I think. Those are on location events that are going to be happening.
Yeah, if you're there, if you're an important I don't know if that's the right word, but a journalist in gaming journalism, then you'll get to go, you'll get to play. E3 is still only for media, right? It's not you can't just buy a ticket.
I think you can. Maybe I'm wrong.
Can you do that now? Well, there was a time, I think many, many years ago, it was open to the public, and then it became a media-only thing. So there was another convention that was put together, I think by different people, called E for All or E for Everyone or something like that. And that was one where if you're just a regular Joe like you and I, then you could just buy a ticket and go. But I don't know if E3 has changed back to the way it was or not. It might still be only a media thing. I'm not sure.
Matt,
that's something that I probably should have looked up.
We're no longer regular Joes, Matt. We're gaming journalists. Or we would be if you put your fucking review up.
It's so close. I'm sorry. It's so close to being done, I promise. Oh, man. if I didn't set up like a desktop recording thing, I can load up Premiere right now and show you.
That's okay, because
yeah,
I feel like I need
coming.
to get one done once you've got one done, and I don't even have one planned right now. So
at least I do already have a second one planned. I was telling you about that, and the script for that's already written. That's ready to go. My big mistake with the Andromeda review, by the way, the reason why it's taking so long is because I didn't have the foresight to do this while I was actually playing the game through. It's been all recording footage and then going through the footage that I recorded and picking out the specific pieces that I want for certain parts of it. That's what's taken so long. And yeah, like I would have finished like a week ago if I had just recorded my gameplay while I was playing the game. That would have been a really good idea. So yeah, that was a learning experience for future videos that we will be doing.
Yeah,
that's for damn sure.
I really wanted to do a Breath of the Wild review, but I feel like it's gonna like lose some of its luster because I can't record gameplay footage. I don't have a capture card or anything, so I don't have any way to record my Switch footage, which is gonna, I can pull it from other videos, but it kind of loses a lot of its impact, I think.
You'll have to wait till Nintendo patches that in, like they said they would.
What, video recording?
Yeah, the Switch has that capture button, but it only does screenshots right now. But I remember reading somewhere they said they were going to eventually patch in video recording functionality to the button as well.
How are you doing? I don't know if you want to say what your second review is, but how are you getting footage for that? Because that's a PS4 game, right? Are you just recording clips with the record option?
Yeah. It's that, and when we were talking about your Switch recording woes earlier, I had mentioned also just pointing my camcorder at like the TV and just recording footage like super ghetto, right? So I might do some of that. But yeah, I mean, it's got a share button with the video recording, so that's good enough.
Are you going to upload all those videos to Twitter and then just download them from there?
I guess I have to.
Or Facebook?
Actually, no, you know what? I don't have to do that. And I should have done this when I was taking screenshots of Destiny and like Infamous Second Son, back when I was playing that. I keep forgetting that you can just take a little USB stick and plug it into the PS4 and just move your videos onto that. So yeah,
I didn't know that.
Facebook or Twitch or anything like that.
Wow.
Yeah,
I really didn't know that. That's I have like I'm holding up USB sticks that I have on my desk to the camera right now.
Like I don't think I actually have one. I have to get one. But I know they're cheap these days.
There's so many on my desk right now. I'm holding a 16 gig and a like 4 gig right now. Fuck.
Yeah. Look at us.
So, while we're talking about Mass Effect, before we talk about the patch, I wanted to talk about this news that I just read before we started recording. I don't think it's like huge news. This, like, the articles that I was reading make it sound bigger than it is, but if you like read the article, so EA has said that they're going to continue supporting Mass Effect Andromeda, but that they're also putting the series on hiatus for now. And that sounds bad on paper, but it's like they basically have just said they're going to wait a little bit before they develop the next game instead of immediately developing it, which is what they would normally do. So it's not like they're canceling it for like years. I think they're just going to like give it a couple months to, figure out how everybody's feeling once they've put out some more content for Andromeda.
It's what it sounds like. I know they did the usual kind of corporate speak thing where they had to be very, very diplomatic about how they phrased it, like the Atlas thing, right? But they were basically saying, look, we have all these other great properties and all these other great games, and the employees at the studio are so talented, and we really want to get them to work on all these great titles we're developing, which is them saying, they're not working on Mass Effect anymore. But it seems like a very un-EA kind of thing, because you'd think that team would still be there churning out like some single-player DLCs and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that's a cash cow for any of these huge franchises. So that's what surprised me the most. Like, you think they'd want to cash in on that. It's kind of shitty for people that liked Mass Effect Andromeda a lot, just because they're probably expecting more content. And they have been doing, a couple patches and some content updates as well. Not like super big stuff, but, improvements to the cutscenes and that kind of thing. That's actually something that they did in the most recent patch just yesterday, I think, 1.06.
Yeah, it was
But it's weird to me that they would just give up on the whole DLC thing, because from the sound of it, I think the remaining team is only doing multiplayer stuff. I don't think they're going to be doing single player content beyond.
Yeah, that's what. And I'm sure it seems like maybe that was misworded, and they're going to clarify that later. Because from what I'm reading, a lot of the people on the team got moved to EA Motive, they're the ones making Battlefront 2. So that makes sense, pulling some people off of that team to work on Battlefront 2, because that's their next big game.
Next big release, yeah.
But
it's going to be huge.
From what I'm reading here, the remainder of BioWare Montreal will either continue working on Andromeda multiplayer content or shift to the new BioWare IP, which was just pushed back until at least April of 2018.
Yeah, codename Dylan, I think, is the name of the project.
I haven't read anything
Very
about
mysterious. That. Yeah.
Codename Dylan.
Doesn't mean a whole lot, we think.
I actually, before we talk about the Mass Effect patch, you mentioned Atlas, and I wanted to bring that up again, actually. You reminded me. It's been, on April 26th they posted this, so it's been about 2 weeks since they posted this, but they posted an update to their Persona 5 streaming rules. And this...
I remember this.
It just confirms what I was saying about them being really tone deaf. So it's like, to our surprise, we then saw numerous reactive news articles go up, opinion videos post, and received many emails asking us to please change our Persona 5 streaming/video policy. We recognize that our fans are the reason why the game is the major worldwide success it is, and we continue to want them to be able to enjoy the game without fear of being spoiled. Nobody is afraid of being spoiled. Like, nobody... If people are afraid of being spoiled, they're afraid of, reading a random 4chan post that tells them the ending of the game. They're not worried about stumbling across a YouTube video or a Twitch stream that spoils the game.
I'm just really surprised that they still tried to spin it in a good way. You know what I mean? This was an opportunity for them to kind of just have a little bite of humble pie and be like, all right, look, that was kind of silly. Just fine, go ahead. Yeah. And nobody would have blamed them for that. Everyone would have been like, all right, yeah, that's cool. At least they know it was kind of silly and whatever. But no, they had to try and sort of apologize, kind of, but still drive home the point. Look, we still don't want you to do this. Also, a little more lenient maybe, but
still didn't lift the restrictions. They just moved them to the in-game date of November 19th, which is apparently when the main story gears up for the final act. So they pushed it back towards the end of the game, but they still haven't completely lifted these restrictions. Also, so many people broke those restrictions and nothing happened to them.
Oh yeah.
Everyone who's
that. It's people who pirate games, there's so many of them. People that pirate movies, there is no amount of money or manpower that will make any kind of group actually go after those people. No way. There's way too many of them.
Don't forget about that lady that got sued for a ton of money for movies that she downloaded, Matt.
Well, there's enough manpower and money to go after a couple of them, just not all of them.
She must have downloaded a lot of movies. And then So this line is, we also want to apologize to those of you who saw the previous guideline blog post as threatening. We want to be transparent about what we do, and the reason we released the guidelines was to give streamers the right information up front. It was never our intention to threaten people with copyright strikes, but we clearly chose the wrong tone for how to communicate this. Yes, I would say that if you didn't want to threaten people with copyright strikes, literally threatening them with copyright strikes was probably
shouldn't do that.
You may have worded it poorly, because what you didn't want to do is actually literally exactly what you did.
Yeah, it was a special day. That was a pretty interesting thing to read.
As far as I know, though, people aren't that outraged about this. They claim to have seen. No. Well, I mean, people obviously aren't
happy about it, but nobody really cares. Not really. It's something silly to kind of laugh about.
Mostly nobody cares because they're not doing anything about it. I know several people who've streamed the game and finished the game on stream, and it just, nothing's going to happen.
No, not for something like this. If it was an unreleased game and people were streaming, leaked copies of it, which people still do anyway, but even that would be a more
Twitch does crack down on that really hard, though.
That I remember. Yeah.
Okay.
I believe it.
I sidetracked us a little bit. We can talk about the Mass Effect patch now.
Oh yeah, so it's got the usual stuff like balance updates, which, by the way, one of the things that I mentioned in the review is that the weapon balance in Mass Effect is fucking garbage. It's awful. And they're trying to fix it. To their credit, they're trying, but my god, they really haven't done it, because I play tested some of that patch yesterday. I mean, not a whole lot. I haven't gone through every single weapon.
You play tested it, huh?
Yeah. I play tested it after it released on my computer. That's what I did. But it's still kind of crappy, unfortunately.
Well,
but I mean, they're trying, so there's that.
I feel like it's never going to be like a top priority for them to fix that, because it's not a competitive online game. And
it's not competitive. It doesn't make them more money.
Yeah.
So.
A lot of companies do that where, you know, in a single, or not in a single player, in like a cooperative thing, they're like, well, who really cares if the balance is that off, because you're not playing against other players. So
yeah.
And to an extent, I understand that, but I mean, it's not like, you know, that doesn't excuse like awful balance.
They were just coming at it from an angle where, particularly on the high difficulty, certain weapons and powers and stuff were just useless. Like, there was no reason to do them. And part of the point of Mass Effect Andromeda's skill system, now this doesn't apply really to the multiplayer as much as single player, the point of them doing that is that you could pick any build you want and still be able to compete. And it's kind of shows up with the classes in the multiplayer system for Andromeda, just because there's like a million different classes. God, there's probably like 20 or 30 of them or something like that. And they want you to be able to pick any class you want. They don't want to have to be like, oh, only these classes are capable of doing the really tough levels. Yeah. And that's where they screwed up. So, I mean, they're adjusting like enemy health and how often they attack and stuff like that as well. But
so you're saying that, like, instead of making it so that the game is so hard that only specific loadouts and classes can do it, they're making it so easy that any class or loadout can do it, but those super strong loadouts just like steamroll everything.
Well, that's kind of how it is now. Like, there were some melee loadouts were actually really common because they were the only ones that would give you the super high damage and allow you to survive without dying. You know?
I know I didn't play much of it, but whenever I was playing Soldier, I just didn't feel like I was having much impact. Like,
yeah,
because, you know, I have like a frag grenade, which the frag grenade does fuck all. Let's be honest. Like, you can kill some weaker enemies with it, but it's probably just a better use of your time to shoot the stronger enemies. You'll do about the same amount of damage in the same amount of time.
And dude, that was a super common thing across every like power you could use, most of them anyway. One of the things they did was they gave all the powers in this patch like a 30% damage buff across the board because they just sucked.
Yeah. So well, I mean, aside from like
changes like that, but well, yeah, I mean, there's some exceptions, but for the most part, like all your bread and butter powers, they were terrible on gold. You couldn't do shit with them. So
yeah, like
they're doing stuff like they're doubling the damage of certain guns, and they're trying to track what's underperforming. Man, I'm sounding like I'm like being a correspondent for them here. This is not at all how I'm intending to come across. That's just some of the stuff that's in the patch. But they're doing a lot of single-player stuff, too. Not just, like, weapon balance, but in this one, they're actually adjusting more of, like, the cutscenes and the animations again.
Are they fixing more eyes and stuff?
So, well, actually, on the default model for Sarah Ryder, the female, they changed her makeup. Like, they made her lips bright, and they gave her, I think, eyeshadow, and she looks pretty different now. It's kind of weird, actually.
That's weird, because she looked a lot different.
I'm not used to it, but, you know, I think they try to make her look more like the model she was based on.
Yeah.
You know, your mileage may vary with that, but they're, again, all I can say about these patches is that they're trying. They're at least making an effort.
Yeah.
No matter
they at least have realized and acknowledged that they fucked up. So,
yeah.
Maybe I'll go back and give it a try at some point.
We'll give it another whirl eventually. We'll see. Speaking of games that I want to give another whirl to, can we talk about Starbound for a minute?
Yeah. Oh, man, I completely forgot about the Starbound stuff.
Dude. All right, so
I forgot we were going to talk about
this thing with us where we thought it was going to be really cool, and it looked really cool, but then we started playing it, and it just didn't have a lot of substance, right? Like, there was nothing to really lock us in to keep playing. It didn't feel as good, I think, as Terraria did. Would you agree with that?
Yes, and I'll tell you, I think I know exactly what the issue is. I think that the problem is we started playing Starbound too early when it was like barely a game. And so right now, Starbound has a lot of content, you know. It's like, I would call it a full game at this point. It's not like a super high featured game, but at this point, I think it's probably a full game. But the issue is, because we started playing it when it wasn't really one, we've kind of like, at this point, we've burnt out on like the basics of the game. And so we didn't really have that problem with Terraria, because Terraria was kind of, that came out a little bit before, you know, like early access was the norm for video games. So Terraria now has, you know, shitloads more features than it did when it first came out, but it released as a full game. Like, Terraria came out and it was like playable. It had all this progression and stuff. So our first taste of Terraria was like full on an actual game. So we didn't have to do this.
Hang on
like
a sec. That's no. We played an early version of Terraria.
Yeah, we played.
Remember that?
It was in a beta and like an early access thing, but I think even when Terraria was in its early access form, I think it was a more complete game than Starbound has been up until like, you know, 6 months ago.
I think I could agree with that. Yeah.
And
I think you're right.
And I think that's the issue with Starbound is every time they did one of their big like early access updates for Starbound, we would get on the game and play again. And at this point, you know, I'm fucking sick of doing like the start over from scratch and build up again in Starbound, because we did it so many times.
And I think that's part of the problem. Terraria seems like it has a much better design behind it, like the way the progression system works, but also how fast you progress. It goes at a good rate where you don't feel like you're being burned out because you've been knocking like the same fucking ore block over and over.
Terraria
like,
is
an hour. Starbound has, or at least the last time I played it, Starbound was a lot worse in that department. They had a lot of upgrades you could do, but they just took so long to get through.
Well,
it was a pain.
The issue with Starbound is you mine shit so slow at the start of the game, and you need so much of it. And like, one of the first things that Starbound makes you do is dig to the center of a fucking planet, basically, with this useless digging machine that can barely even break through stone. If you run into some ore, you're fucked. Like, the issue is that the progression is so slow to start with Starbound, and it's the opposite with Terraria. With Terraria, even if you're playing on like expert mode or something, the progression is like lightning fast at the beginning of the game, especially if you happen to find like a good surface chest that has like a really good piece of loot. Like, if you get a double jump item super early in Terraria, you're blazing through the first half of like the first part of the game. But it slows down when it needs to slow down in Terraria, which is when things start getting harder, when you've reached the point where you have tons of stuff. Then the game piles on the difficulty so that you have to like slow your progression down a little bit and start thinking about things. But by that point, you're already grabbed. Like, the quick start at the beginning of the game has already kind of like pulled you in, and at this point you're invested, you know, you're enjoying the gameplay hooks. And I think Starbound doesn't grab you right off the bat at all. And I think
it actually did that better before, when you were you know how the opening story of Starbound used to be that each race was its own thing, and you were kind of fleeing from your home planet for some reason or another, right?
It did. It had like a placeholder, like.
I like that better. I thought that was more interesting. But now, no matter what you choose, you're just like the race of the character that you choose has no impact at all. It doesn't matter, right? Not even in story terms.
Every race you pick starts on Earth, which is like, what?
For some reason.
Why?
That made me care a lot less about the opening like moments, you know? I don't know. I like story in games. I really do. I love a good story in a game, or even just a story that I enjoy if it's not necessarily good. And like Starbound was a budget game. It wasn't like a huge AAA project, but even that, it was cool before. Or cooler anyway.
Terraria was a budget game too, and I think Terraria was more of a budget game than Starbound was. And to me,
now, Terraria does not do a story, but it has way better like progression and gameplay. And
they decided they weren't going to focus on story at all and just go for the gameplay hook. And I think that was like, that gameplay hook is what initially grabs you in Terraria, and I think Starbound is still missing that. It's still missing something right off the bat that grabs you. And another thing that I think hinders Starbound in that regard is the hunger meter. The hunger meter is, it makes sense to have a hunger meter, but the hunger meter in Starbound is really, it's like, it moves too fast, at least at the start of the game, when you don't have anything set up to deal with your food. And then it never is at this like peak point. And this is the same problem Minecraft has. Like Minecraft has this problem really bad. You're either starving to death or you have more fucking food than you know what to do with. There's no in between. Yeah. There's no point where you're just like, you're like not struggling, but you're not comfortable. That doesn't happen. It doesn't happen in Minecraft and it doesn't happen in Starbound. You are like, you spend the first 20 minutes of the game starving to death. And then you finally break down and like set up a farm and spend 30 minutes farming food. And then you never worry about food again.
Yeah, then at that point, set for life after that.
At that point, it's just an unnecessary annoyance because you have to worry about eating this food, but you never have to like worry about am I going to be able to find food before I starve to death? And there's just survival games have not really done hunger right. Don't Starve, aptly enough, is probably the game that has done hunger the best because you're never going to reach a point in Don't Starve where you are just like, I'm set forever. You might have like a bountiful amount of food, but all food rots in that game. It rots at different rates. The food in Starbound doesn't rot fast enough for you. There's no incentive not to stockpile it, especially once you get a refrigerator, because then it lasts like fucking forever.
Do they make it actually last forever, or do they make it just take a super long time? I don't know if we ever figured that out.
I have no idea.
Yeah, who cares?
But we've gotten completely away from the point of why we got onto Starbound and why we were talking about going back to it.
Oh, yeah. So they, as you know, have posted some updates recently. I guess they've been doing that pretty consistently. I don't really know. I stopped paying attention a long time ago, but you pointed this out to me.
It's a couple of months, and then sometimes they'll go a couple months without any. Like, over Christmas time, from like the middle of December to the middle of January, there was no word from them, but...
Yeah. Well, the last one they did was a pretty big one. They have added... I think this is in the game now. I gotta go back and double check the blog post. They've added space stations, but specifically space stations that are modular. And I don't mean you choose like from a specific set of upgrades that you want. I mean you have a grid and you just choose where you want your rooms.
Yeah, you have to.
Really cool. That's something that they people who are fans of Starbound have been asking for their spaceships ever since the beginning. There even were mods that introduced.
I was going to say it's things that Starbound fans have been adding to the game since it came out.
Yeah, sadly. So at least it's good that it actually has some official support now. Your ship, I don't think, is modular. I think they're sticking with the model they went with for that, where you have fixed upgrades.
I think that's fine with the space station aspect, because I don't know if you saw this part of the space station aspect, it's also portable. So wherever you are in space, I think you can just summon your space station to that like system that you're in. So it's basically like a second ship because you can bring it with you wherever you go.
Yeah.
But the way that's
actually smart, because that's a feature where people used to only live on their ships. I saw this talked about a lot too. I know it wasn't just you and me. Where you wouldn't want to settle down on a planet because the whole point of that game is that you go from planet to find more resources. You're always on the move. And they kind of solved it a little with the teleportation thing where you could beam back to your home planet. But you still would set up shop with all your factories and everything on the ship, right?
Yeah.
So now, and the ship is a fixed size. Once you fill it up, that's it. So now they have this modular system with a space station where you can drag all your crap around with you from station or from system to system. And that's, I think it's a smart solution to that problem. I'd still like modular ships, but whatever.
I'm cool with modular.
It's definitely a step in the right direction.
What I'm wondering is there going to be a way to like, can you get like glitch pieces for your space station? So when you build a room onto your space station, like the outside appearance of it looks like glitch ships or architecture. And I'm sure even if that's not a thing that they're planning to add, I'm sure that can be modded in, and people will do that. But
I believe it. They've made the game pretty mod friendly ever since the beginning, so I'd be super surprised if that did not show up in some form.
And I don't know either. I don't think they talked about this, but I don't know if there's an upper limit to the size of the space station. I know that it costs resources. I don't think it's pixels. I think you probably have to like build or find the pieces that you need. I hope anyway, because that, if you just go buy like, a corridor connector for 500 pixels or whatever, then that's, it's kind of a cheap way to go about it. And I don't mean cheap like resource wise. I mean cheap like, you could make it so that these things have to be crafted and actually build on your crafting system, which right now is like, you build one workbench and then you just keep that workbench until you can build the next workbench, and then you don't really like keep your workbenches around for any reason after you've upgraded them.
Yeah.
But I think Starbound is definitely it's making pretty good strides. I'm reluctant to try it again so soon after we tried it the last time, because I don't want to just like feel like I'm burnt out on it again, which is what happened to me when we were playing those like monthly updates. We were playing like every time some new update came out, we would start a new set of characters and play through the game again. And the progression was fast then, but it was boring. Which is like, it was closer to Terraria's kind of progression, but there was never a point where it peaked, where your power would like hit a level where the game got harder.
Yeah.
Appropriately. So like it just stayed the same difficulty all throughout. And that's, I know we're not talking about Terraria, but I really feel like Terraria does a lot of this stuff better than Starbound right now. And it's weird to me because the person that made Starbound worked on Terraria for years. So,
well, he, I believe, only worked on Terraria as an artist. He wasn't like a gameplay guy or a programmer.
I didn't know that. But still, you would think that, I mean, you don't want to be the game.
Maybe they didn't listen to him. Maybe he was an idea guy, and they were like, no, shut up, we're doing it this way.
I mean, it's like, you never want to be the guy that steals a bunch of ideas from another game that's similar, but some things work for a reason, and they're only going to work if they're done in specific ways, and you might just have to man up to the fact that you're going to have some features that are similar to the only other comparable game right now in the genre.
I think the best way to see that Terraria does the whole like progression and game design thing better is actually something you mentioned. Whenever Starbound had an update, like a major content update of some kind, you and I would go back and play it and we get burned out.
Yeah.
Whenever Terraria had some kind of update, you and I would go back, start new characters fresh, and we would play it all the way to the end every time.
Yeah, and we
did it so consistently.
It would only be like a week, but we would play like 40 hours in that week, which
easily.
I don't know if I've even put 40 hours in Starbound total so far, to be honest with you. You have, I know, because you were doing a lot of like modding stuff, and you played a lot of it when it was like super early.
Yeah,
but I
liked it. I thought it was a really good idea, and I think it's different enough from Terraria that you can kind of justify it and say, yeah, they're similar, but like they do things differently enough that there's room for both of them, right?
Yeah,
it's not a case of like, oh, one's just better, even though I mean Terraria is kind of better, but
that's
still.
I feel like that's part of the issue. Is I feel like the team making Starbound is too scared to do things similar to Terraria. So like everything they implement is like vastly different from Terraria. And in some situations it works really well. Like they added like the powers that you can put into your suit, and those are fucking awesome. Like some of them aren't very useful, but that's going to happen, in any situation where you get choice like that. There's just going to be better choices almost every time. But the power system, there was a vehicle system, and then like the vehicle system is always in like a weird state of flux with Starbound. So
is
like
that still there? I know they have a mech system now with like you can customize the arms and stuff, which is kind of cool. But are the actual like the hover bikes and stuff still in?
I don't think so, and I think they took those out a while ago, and they haven't been in for a while. Because I mean, previously there was no system. You just got in it and you moved faster, and that was it. There wasn't anything special about any of those vehicles, really, aside from the movement speed increase, which is good. But what they're doing with the mechs now, where you can customize your mech to have like all these different abilities, this is like a way better idea.
Oh yeah.
It's they're coming to a point where things are getting a lot better with Starbound, but I feel like it had a rocky start, and I feel like a lot of that was they so wanted to make their own identity as like, hey, we're not a Terraria clone, even though we're a game in the exact same genre, you know, with the same setup. And I think they were too scared of that. I think, you know, obviously, no matter how different you make your game, there are going to be people out there that call it a Terraria clone, no matter what you do. It's going to get called a Terraria
of that when it was coming out. It got tons of that. They were like, oh, like it's Terraria in space.
Yeah.
And obviously, I mean, it's a similar genre, right?
It could be completely different in terms of gameplay. And it is. It's like, you know, the gameplay hooks are completely different between these two games. But they are 2D side-scrolling games where you mine things, you craft things, you build things. Starbound is going to get called a Terraria clone, no matter what they do. So I think that they need to worry less about that. And I think they are now. I think that they've kind of found where they want to go with the game. They've got the identity that they want for the game now. But early on, it felt like the identity for the game was, this is not Terraria. That's all that they seem to be going for, was like, any idea we can come up with that Terraria is not doing, we're going to put in the game.
Yeah.
But I
the
think...
random generated weapons, the universe, all that shit.
Yeah. And I'm still not really a fan of the randomly generated weapons, to be honest with you, just because it's not like there's a bunch of different effects that can be on these weapons. Like, you know, there's only a few different kinds of swords, a few different kinds of hammers that you can get. Otherwise, you're just getting weird looking weapons with dumb names that do the same thing as the other weird weapon with the dumb name that you had, but slightly higher damage.
Or very, very often worse. And this is a problem that another game with randomly generated weapons that you and I like, Borderlands.
Yeah.
That you would run into a situation, especially in the first game, where you would find a gun and it was good. There's always going to be guns, or I mean weapons in general, that are better than others. You can't get away from that, and that's kind of the idea of the system. But instead of having a lot of different effects, you would just have one that was really good and then a million that were terrible. And you'd always be excited to find, like, oh, it's a new weapon. Oh, I got a new item. I got loot. And it would suck. And this is just a cycle over and over and over. I feel like that actually happened more in Borderlands 1, even though people always say the itemization was better in that game. But that's because you could pick up a really good gun and use it for like the next 20 levels. Whereas in the sequels, you had to cycle out your weapons super fast, or you weren't going to be able to put a dent in anything, right? And that's the kind of thing that happened in Starbound. Like, most of the weapons you come across, with very few exceptions, they just be garbage. There's no reason to use them. And like you said, they don't do any special effects or like have some kind of reason that you would want to be like, oh, maybe I'll try this one out, even though it's not as strong as what I'm using now.
The staffs
they kind of have that with the crafted weapons. Yeah, the staffs.
The staffs are fucking cool.
No, you can find those. Yeah,
but
can
like,
you find those? The random loot.
Yeah, you can find the staffs. Yeah. But the issue is they added the staffs, and it just makes it way more obvious that the other weapons are in a really shitty place right now. So I'm really hoping that they'll do some kind of revamp in the future, because the staffs are awesome. You can find staffs with like healing effects. You can find a staff where you right click somewhere and it puts like a disruption field that enemies can't enter. Like, all the staffs have fucking awesome effects. And I think there's only like 3 different types of attacks that the staffs have, but they're all like wildly different from each other. And it's
That's true. Yeah, the variety in those is pretty good.
It seems like the staffs are like
two-handed weapons.
The staffs?
They have special attacks, right? No, like the two-handed swords. So they're they're kind of going in that direction, right?
The two-handed weapons are getting good too.
But,
can you guys hear the airplane flying over my house? Because I can see it lighting my mic up even when I'm not fucking. I can
hear it a little bit.
Are you kidding?
I can't believe. Oh, there it is again. Wow. I can't believe my cats haven't come to the door and meowed at me, because they did it right before we started recording.
Sorry, I muted my mic because it was really loud there. I live right next to an airport, by the way, so that happens from time to time. But anyway, like, yeah, the two-handed weapons have some cool effects too, but some of the two-handed weapons are worthless. But those are like ones that existed before they did this big, like, when they added the staffs, they overhauled weapons at the same time, and they did
the whole combat system, I think.
But the issue is, guns and one-handed weapons in Starbound are just really fucking boring. Grenade launchers, rocket launchers, those are really cool, but like the assault rifles and the pistols, they're just guns. That's it. Like,
Yeah.
they don't really do anything special. The one-handed swords definitely don't do anything special.
They don't. That's a drawback of their whole control scheme, because you had to have the other button free for your other weapon in the other hand. There were no special attacks. Well, maybe someday. We'll see. And that day, maybe that's the day we'll go back and play it again.
I want to try out the mechs, but I don't want to start a new character. I can't go through that again. We just did it less than a year ago, so I'm not prepared right now.
Less than a year. This is the threshold that we're talking about, people.
To be fair, it was like 4 or 5 months, I think, when we did it.
I can't even remember. Was it that, like, soon?
It was pretty recent.
Short a time ago? Is that?
Yeah, because I can remember distinctly... I can remember us just crafting tons of the giant storage containers and like stacking them on top of each other.
Oh yeah,
because they're super cheap.
You're right.
They're the biggest storage containers available.
Yeah.
I don't know. I still have hope for Starbound, but I think they pressed it into early access too early. I mean, I don't think that they did, and you know that they did because the game has gone through at least 2 complete overhauls since they put it into early access. Like, every aspect of the game changed at least twice since it went into early access.
They've done a lot of iteration on that.
Early aspect, early access.
Same thing.
Early aspect. But yeah, if you put a game into early access and then at some point a few months down the line retool the entire game, that means you put the game into early access too soon. Like, you should not.
It is something I'd like to see less of.
You should not be hitting early access at the very minimum until you know you're not going to break your entire game down and rebuild it from the ground up. Like, that's like a bare minimum requirement for early access.
And I know that there are rational people. Like, I think I'm pretty rational usually. I think you are. A lot of people I know who can look at a game like that and be like, okay, I know this game is unfinished. I understand that. I accept it in this current state and that it's probably going to be different by the time the game's done. But man, I feel like early access is such a mistake for PR reasons because there are so many people out there. This is just human nature. I think this is just how people behave normally, who will take any little like mistake or wrong aspect or thing that's not done perfectly well and just run with it and grind it and mash it and tear it apart and show how it's like the worst thing ever. You know what I mean?
You mean like what we've been doing the last 15 minutes?
Exactly. They do shit like that. And you know what? That's not fair. That is totally unfair. But I think it's too much for people that are doing early access games to ask their audience not to do that. Because you're asking people to change how they are. You have to accept that when you put an early access game up, and I think that hurts a lot of them.
When a game goes into early access, you have to be prepared to get shit. Like, it's going to happen no matter how good your game is in early access. And I think, I'm pretty forgiving of that stuff, but I do think that Starbound has been in early access too long at this point. It's released, isn't it? Like they did 1.0. It's officially released at this point. They released it. Although they're still making these huge sweeping changes to the game, which to me just signifies that when they released the game, just like when they went into early access, they weren't actually ready to do that. Are you fucking kidding me with these airplanes, dude?
It's a popular day.
Here, Matt, carry the conversation.
Oh, good Lord. Well, listen, I think that is something that, like, it's just such a thing that you have to prepare for. And with Starbound, it was like a series of updates, one after the next, right? From the very first time that the game was playable in some form, right up until now. And calling it, okay, this is 1.0, that's just a point where they reached a certain, like a checklist. Where they said, look, these are the features we want to be in the game at 1.0, so once it gets there, we'll just call it release. But they're still making updates after. They're still making updates before. It's like a gradient. It's just one string of updates after the next. Calling it 1.0 for a game like that, it's formality. It's nothing more than a formality.
The issue isn't that they're still updating the game, because that's just, a game should be updated after its release.
Yeah.
The issue is,
I don't mean to say that's a bad thing.
Yeah,
it's a good thing.
The updates that they're making are of the same caliber as the updates they were making before the release of the game, which means the game wasn't ready to be released. Like, you shouldn't be making updates of the same size as when your game was in early access after you've released it, unless it's like a DLC release or something. But if you're still making as widespread of changes as you did before your release, then your game was released too early. So I still consider Starbound to be an early access game, because I still don't...
It's not done.
They have clearly not reached the point that they wanted to reach on the game before it was released. Otherwise, we wouldn't be seeing giant, like this space station update is a huge thing.
Yep.
Like, it's a game-changing thing.
I don't know about the mechs. I can't remember if they were part of the original plan or not. Space stations were. I remember this. And there were mock-ups that they produced that were like, hey, this is what the space stations are going to look like. That was long before 1.0. I'm so certain it was. I don't have the article up in front of me now, so I apologize if I'm actually wrong, but I'm so certain that this was years ago at this point. Yeah. Where they said, so this is part of the plan. We're going to do space stations. That's going to be a thing. Vehicles and all the rest. Pets. That was like during the crowdfunding phase. That was one of the rewards. Big deal. So
that was a stretch goal.
That speaks to me more than any other feature they've added, the space station thing. And I'm glad that it's finally here. It's not in the form that they said it would be in.
Also,
that kind of
how
thing.
How long have Nova Kids been in the game, Matt?
I want to say that they were there at 1.0. I know they weren't there with the rest of the races. Like, they were added after the fact, because those were also I keep wanting to say pre-order bonus. They weren't a pre-order bonus. Those were a crowdfunding stretch goal, I believe, that they were added as a playable race. But I don't think they were actually deployed into the game until 1.0. And even when that happened, they didn't have all of the features that come with a race in this game. And
they still don't.
Villages and stuff.
That was the point that I was going to make. You still don't run into Nova Kid villages on planets. They don't have any lore aside from like some book entries. It's like,
have they really not added the villages, like little saloons and stuff?
There's no Nova Kid villages. Huh. I'm certain that there's not. Maybe, unless they were added recently. There were not when we played last time, and that was just a few months back.
That is true. I remember there being none the last time we played.
And there's no, I mean, I'm trying to think if there's any other race that only has, specific types of things. I don't think there is.
Well, I think most of them are complete. For a while, the fish people were missing their underwater villages too. I don't know. Those were actually added after Nova Kids, believe it or not. That part of that race was unfinished. When Nova Kids came out.
I think the only underwater villages that are in the game right now are ruined ones that you can loot, and they don't have Hylotl in them.
Right, sorry. Yeah, those underwater ruins. Yeah, that's what I meant.
Okay.
I don't know if they have above ground stuff where there's actually little fish people living or not, but I just remember that was an incomplete race at the time.
Yeah.
So definitely.
I mean, I want to
down there
as we wind down the Starbound discussion. It seems like we've been shitting on it for the last 15 minutes, but I do think that it's fun. I don't think I have as much fun with it as the game is fun at this point, but that's because I burned out just doing the same thing over and over while it was still in early access. I think that there's a lot of potential still there, but like I said, the game came out, I think, about 2 years early in early access. If it had hit early access 2 years after the day they put it into early access, then I think we would be on a decent, respectable time scale for what the game should be expected to be. And
man, that you said something in there that is like the theme of Starbound's entire history. Is it's got so much potential. It really does. It still does. Are they going to actually invest in that and make good on it? They kind of are in some areas of the game, but are they going to make it this huge tied together experience? I don't know. Yeah, remains to be seen, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's the pitfall that almost every early access game falls into at this point, is that they go into early access too early. And that's why early access has this bad reputation, because people are putting out games that are basically in an alpha state in early access. And like early access is not meant for games that are like in alpha phase at that point. Like beta at most, but I mean, the idea of early access when it started, correct me if I'm wrong, was just to let people access your game early, but the game at that point should have been almost complete, if not actually complete.
Well, it's kind of been around in a few different forms. You've got some games that are like, hey, this is pretty much done, but if you pre-order it, you can play it like a couple weeks early. Sometimes publishers do that for bigger titles, or you get into the multiplayer beta a few months before the game actually launches, and at that point, the game is pretty much feature complete. They're just doing stress tests and shit like that.
Yeah, and when I hear the words early access
games, yeah, that was like. You used to see it a lot, and probably still do see it a lot with games that are indie titles. They don't have a lot of money, and they're trying to, earn some more capital so they can keep working on the game.
Yeah.
That I feel like that was what it was for back when it started. Now I feel like more of them are just like, well, we just want to get paid earlier.
Yeah.
It's not like a thing that we really need to do, but we just want to get a head start on this money. Right?
When big name studios are putting games out in early access, you're not using the platform correctly. That's not...
Yeah.
The platform does not exist for fucking EA to put out an early access game, okay? You don't need the money to finish the game, EA. You don't need...
Well, that's a publisher thing, because they're like, look, they're looking at it from just the money point of view, like, hey, we could make some extra dough right now. Why would we wait until release? We could just do it right now. What an incentive. Get to play this game that you're looking forward to like 6 months ahead of time? Hell yeah. You can charge for that.
Yeah. So I wanted to clarify before we move away from Starbound that I don't think that Starbound is like an awful game and that the developers should die or anything. Yeah. I think that there were a lot of missteps, and I think that I feel like the point when we started talking about this was to say that they have learned from those missteps, but I got like away from the topic and we started shitting on the game.
Yeah.
But it seems like
you're right.
It seems like things are improving. It seems like they finally have like a solid direction they want to take the game in, and they're taking the game in that direction instead of, doing something for 4 months and then saying, okay, we're scrapping all of this and restarting from the beginning, basically.
Yeah.
So, good on them. We're running a little low on time, but I had a couple things I wanted to talk about. We're not going to have time for all of them, but I want to talk about Payday 2 real quick.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to start with that? I got something to say, but you can go for it.
Yeah. So,
okay.
If anybody has followed Payday 2's development over time, they've known that it's been kind of a bumpy road. So, Payday 2 came out, and it was, it was just a game. It was a good game. It was successful. But they, in some interviews early in Payday 2's life, the head of development for Payday 2 said that there will never be microtransactions in Payday 2. And that line specifically, that guarantee that he gave, is what caused so much outrage. But at some point, so Payday 2 was developed by Overkill Software. And Overkill Software was a company almost right after they released Payday 2. They were acquired by another company called Starbreeze. So things were fine for a while, and then I don't know the exact specifics on it, but Overkill got the license for Payday 2 back from Starbreeze at some point and like split from the company. I think they were still a part of the company, but they took like full control of Payday 2 at that point.
Are they still with Starbreeze now?
Yes.
Or not?
That's so they at some point, I don't know if they split completely from Starbreeze. I didn't do enough research on the topic. At some point, basically Overkill took over complete control of Payday 2, and they were operating independently. Whether they were still owned by Starbreeze, I don't know, but Starbreeze was not involved with Payday 2 at that point. Very shortly after that happened, they added microtransactions to the game. Overkill did.
It was the weapon skins, right?
Yes, they were basically CS:GO crates or TF2 crates. You got a safe and you had to buy a drill to open the safe. Predictably, people threw a fucking fit, and then I don't remember his name, but the head of Overkill Software made things like infinitely worse by basically just saying things that the reason people hire PR when they run a video game company is so that they don't say these things. Like he was responding like a human would respond, I think,
Yeah.
Like he was responding.
It was
like
a textbook example of like you ever see, just to sidetrack for a second, like on Twitter when someone like Randy Pitchford is responding to people shitting on Borderlands.
When Randy Pitchford's retweeting Battleborn porn.
Yeah, Battleborn. Like, what? Okay, it's the internet. People are going to be mean. God. You have to just be the bigger person and just not say anything, or be like EA or Activision and craft a carefully worded, very political reply if you absolutely must. Don't go head to head on a personal level with these people. You can't do that. It's the most unprofessional thing in the world, man.
Ladies and gentlemen,
sorry, continue.
If you ever become a game developer, don't be a Philfish. That's
there
all
you go. Yeah, don't.
But
please don't.
So his response was, he was professional about the way that he said it, but basically his response was fuck off. Like, we don't really care all that much. And predictably, people just fucking vacated Payday 2. It's still, there were like 11,000 people playing it earlier today, but I don't think it's ever regained the numbers that it had before that microtransaction thing, because it was a really popular game for a long time.
It was good. I loved Payday. We played a ton of it.
Yeah. And so it took them months to sort of backpedal on this, and they made it so that you could earn the drills to unlock the safes in game. But it was like a rare thing. Like, you didn't get them very often. But that was sort of their compromise. And then I think in early 2016, that date could be wrong, Starbreeze reacquired the rights to Payday 2 from Overkill, instantly killed the microtransaction side of it.
They got rid of it.
They said, this is done. It's gone. Like, effective immediately. These will not drop anymore. You have a month to open these before we're taking the drills off the market. They came in and just bowled over all of that shit. And I think it earned a lot of their their reputation back. So a lot of people came back to Payday when they realized that, Starbreeze took notice of what was happening and basically said, no, fuck this. We're fixing this. But so what I wanted to mention is that Payday 2 is, I would say it's known for having a lot of DLC.
Okay, hang on. Let me pause that right there. Let me paint everybody a picture. If you don't know Payday 2, Payday 2 is a great game. What my friend Tony is about to say is that right now, there are 37 DLC packs available for this game. 37 on Steam. This stuff is all on sale right now, and this is something that I think we're both kind of about to mention. But there is an 85% sale on all Payday 2 DLC right now, and the bunch of it still costs, if for Americans, like, what is it, like $25? I don't know if you checked. For loonies, it's $31 Canadian. For 37 DLC packs at 85% off. That's hundreds of dollars worth of DLC normally.
Previously it cost over $200 to get the game and all DLC for it.
There you go.
And the game is only like $30 now. It's not a $60 game anymore.
So I think Starbreeze wanted to get people back on the game, by the way, so that they would buy the DLC, because that's kind of a big deal. But there is another implication of this. Tony, why is the DLC on sale?
The DLC is on sale because effective June 8th, Payday 2 is removing all DLC from the store and releasing the Ultimate Edition of the game, which costs $45 and comes with every single piece of DLC that has been released to date. That is...
Now, I don't think they've announced this, but that is probably what's going to go on the Switch, isn't it?
Most likely. Sorry. No, I was reading this earlier. Currently, they have plans to do this for the console versions, but they have not... Because I think the console versions are ported by a different company. But what they said is that currently the sale and the Ultimate Edition stuff is not applicable to console yet, but it will be in the future. But right now, this is like strictly a PC thing.
Yeah.
And it could be that this is the version that's going to go on Switch, and they relaunch the console versions all at the same time. But
nobody who owns a Switch, I mean, that's a $300 console in the first place. No one's gonna be buying, $200 worth of DLC for Payday 2 on that.
Matt, I don't know what's weirder, Skyrim on the Switch or fucking Payday 2 on the Switch. I can't decide.
Honestly, I think Payday 2 is a better choice.
Payday 2 is a really weird choice for the Switch, right?
It's weird. It is weird. I mean, we couldn't believe, man. What was it? It was some kind of press announcement that they did. We talked about this last time.
It was a Nintendo Direct.
Where Nintendo was like, hey, here's all these upcoming titles for the Switch. And there was the expected stuff. And then
Payday 2!
Some kind of game about... Yeah, Payday 2 at the bottom of the list. And we were like, what? How are they going to do that? And one of the big questions was, holy crap, there is so much DLC for Payday 2. How are they going to do that on the Switch? They can't get away with that.
There is...
And I think this is how.
How many packs did you say? 37?
I believe I counted 37 packs, and that's not including stuff like soundtracks. That's just content packs for the game, weapons and stuff like that.
This article that I'm reading says Payday 2 is also getting an Ultimate Edition, which will merge nearly every piece of DLC into a single collection, available for $45 along the base game. That includes over 55 heists, 18 playable characters, 77 primary weapons, 51 secondary weapons, and 82 melee weapons.
All right, so the actual DLC packs, they include like a bunch of those per pack.
Yeah, that's not...
Also, that's probably including all of the... there were a lot of free updates, like Shadow Raid. Mm-hmm. I bet you anything they're bundling those into that description as well.
I don't think there's 55 heists in the game, so they might be considering like alternate days of heists and stuff too. Because...
Oh man, that's kind of dummy.
Matt, does 55 heists sound correct for Payday 2? That doesn't sound like the right
It's got
number.
a lot of DLC. We haven't played all of them. I don't know. I wouldn't believe it for any other game, but just because of the amount of DLC, like this and Train Simulator.
I feel like we have most of the heist DLCs, though, because those are the big ones. Like, those are the ones you want. I don't give a shit about a pair of brass knuckles for $2, but...
I know there were some of the heists that you had to pay for, right? Like I think Big Bank was one of them. The Diamond Store. There were a couple. I think that was one of them. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure there were heists that you had to buy. In fact, I can remember one of the ones I saw on the list was, although John Wick, the character, was added for free to the game, there are John Wick heists that you have to buy. I know that for sure.
I wonder if they're counting the heists that were already in the game, like base.
Probably.
That
seems like the kind of thing they would do.
They could be, because it's the base game and all the DLC. But,
yeah,
I mean, that's a crazy change. And, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt, although I'm certain that this change is coming along because they saw that not as many people were buying the DLC as they used to. I'm certain that their decision was, we're going to make more money selling all of this for $45 than we currently are trying to sell, 37 pieces of DLC to all the people that already own the game. But
yeah, I don't think I bought a single one of those. I bought like one or two of them. Whatever we've played together, that's it. The grand majority of the DLC is unpurchased on my account.
I have a pretty good number of the DLCs, although, all I really play is Shadow Raid whenever we play, because... So, I don't want to get too much into this, because we're running out of time, but you and I like to do stealth stuff when we play Payday 2. And one of the most annoying things about Payday 2 is that it seems like they really don't want people to stealth these missions. Because anytime... Like... They have patched out so many semi-reliable tricks to stealth things, and the issue is, the tricks aren't easy. It's not like you're just breezing through the fucking thing. Like, when we would do Framing Frame, which is a job on Payday, it used to be possible to fully stealth that, not easily, but... It was possible to do it in a way that you were
careful and you got a little lucky, you could do it. Yeah. And I remember, I think it's the last stage with the dude's apartment, the senator, whoever he was.
That stage was always hard.
It was always hard. But what they did, you probably know this, they made it so I think the guards respawn indefinitely on, it might just be on the highest difficulty on, Death Wish? But they made them just respawn infinitely over and over. Like, why? That doesn't make sense. Come on.
Yeah, it was...
What are you doing?
I would say Framing Frame Day 1 needed to be changed, because it was really easy to stealth. But Day 3 was always hard. When we did Framing Frame, it would take us almost 2 hours to finish the heist. And over an hour of that would be spent on that last stage. Because The guards had to go in very specific places so that you could knock them out. You were never able to knock out all the guards, but you could knock out enough that you could safely do the things if you were careful
you can work
about
around the
stealth.
other. Yeah.
I don't know how it's possible to stealth that mission anymore. I don't think it is.
You just need, probably, if it is possible, you just have to be super lucky. There's, I think, way too much of an element of, well, like, you got fucked. Big deal.
I don't think that you can get the gold anymore, stealth. I don't think that's possible. I don't see how you could possibly get that gold back up. I'm sure people that haven't played Payday 2 don't know what the fuck we're talking about.
Yeah.
I would say look up a video of Framing Frame, or pick up the game for $45 when the Ultimate Edition comes out and give it a try yourself.
There you go. It's still pretty fun. Just don't, like, do yourself a favor and don't play on Death Wish.
Unpaid promotion. But the reason I brought this up was all we play is Shadow Raid because that is a required stealth mission. If you get detected, you fail that mission, which to me is basically just a guarantee that it's always going to be possible to stealth the mission, which is why I like to play it. But yeah, it feels like they really, and I understand because a lot of the game is the gunplay. So, you know, they don't want people to just miss out on over half of the game. But
yeah,
you know, I've played enough of the gunplay, and let's be honest, the gunplay in Payday 2 is really generic and boring.
It's functional. I mean, there's nothing special about it.
It's not awful, but it's nothing special, yeah. I'm not interested in that gunplay. I want to rob a bank, and I want to do it quietly, stealthily. I want to heist the bank, you know? I want some Ocean's 11 shit, all right? And they just seem to be making it, like, anytime somebody finds something that's even semi-reliable to do that, they patch it out of the game. Or they buff the mission so that it can't be done anymore.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know if they're mistaking reliable for easy, or if they really want people to do the gunplay in the game. Because these were reliable things, but they were really fucking time-consuming and hard.
Yeah, you had to actually do the work to make them viable, right?
Yeah.
I just don't understand it, because that kind of thing makes sense if you're playing a game that is multiplayer and has an economy. Like,
we talked about this
earlier.
A
bad example of this. Yeah, this is a bad example, but Team Fortress 2, okay? I'm not going to go into detail about this game. Everybody knows TF2. It's not a new game.
We could do a whole podcast on
This game does
TF2.
have an economy. Yeah, like there's a marketplace. You can trade items that you find, so they have to balance that so that, you know, they can make money selling loot boxes. But the point is, there is at least a reason in that game for them to try and balance stuff like drop rates and things like that.
Yeah.
Even in the co-op game mode in Man vs. Machine, right? They do that same thing there. Why they would do it in a game like this, or in a game like Borderlands? There were raid bosses in Borderlands 2 DLCs. Raid bosses with ungodly amounts of health. They took ages to kill, and at least at the beginning, I don't know if they did this or if they patched it out later. Raid bosses. Okay, yeah, you know what I'm about to say.
I know what you're going to say.
They're gated. They're time gated.
You can only do them once
a day or something.
Maybe
once
it was
a week.
once
Why?
a day.
It's not an MMO. There's no economy to worry about. You don't have to worry about the guy flooding the market with, you know, all these epic items or whatever. It's not a concern. So why make it like that? Why add that stupid feature that just makes it more frustrating for no reason? And that's exactly what they did to Payday 2.
In Payday 2, it makes even less sense to me. In Borderlands, you can at least give people guns. In Payday 2, you literally cannot interact with anybody's inventory whatsoever. There is no trading. Yep. There's no selling. You can't give somebody a gun in Payday 2. I don't know. It's just...
I love and hate video games, Tony.
You know, Matt, that's a good point to end it on. Because I, too, love and hate video games. So I had a couple other things that I wanted to talk about. We're going to have to save those. We're going to be doing these more consistently. I don't know when this one's going to get edited, but after the point of this being edited, we're going to figure out a schedule. We're going to figure out a specific day each 2 weeks to record, and we are going to actually start doing this every 2 weeks now that I have the time.
We're inching towards consistency. Yeah. It's happening.
Yeah,
it has been happening, and it continues to happen.
I didn't have time to edit the last podcast. I might still go back and edit that at some point and upload an edited version, but probably not. I'm not going to make any promises about that. This one I will be editing, though. So
I'm not going to be too broken up if you don't, to be honest.
Okay.
Because now I understand it. Editing takes work and time.
It's
yeah.
honestly, the hardest part about editing is you have to watch the whole fucking video again. Like, this is over an hour. We're at like 70 minutes now, I think. I have to watch that whole 70 minutes to make sure there's no glitches, to make sure I don't miss anything that I want to edit in. That's the worst part. I don't want to fucking hear myself talk for 70 minutes. God.
Dude, I love the sound of my own voice. You should let me do the editing.
Ugh.
I'll do it. I'll sit through it.
Maybe we'll have a guest edit at some
pain.
point. No, because you're going to do all the editing on the reviews. I'm going to be sending you my footage for the reviews, and you're going to be editing that too. So
there's way more editing for those, but they're shorter videos, so I think it'll balance out.
Yeah. And hopefully. I could do more editing on the podcast. I just don't want to like flood it with stupid edits.
Well, why don't we call it there for tonight? I think that's we got a good run out of this one too. So we'll be back sometime in the near future, probably a couple weeks, like we said at some point in the past.
Yeah,
we'll see. Any final remarks, Tony?
No, I hate video games.
Cool, me too. All right, well, thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you on the next one.
Goodbye, everyone.